History is not just a collection of dates and wars, it is a map of human fears and the boundaries we created to survive them. For centuries, the figure of the succubus stood at the very edge of that map. It was never merely a campfire story or a superstition to frighten the uneducated. It was a personification of an essential truth that human willpower is a finite resource, and that desire, when untethered from meaning, becomes a predatory force. In the ancient world, the succubus was an anthropological limit. It marked the point where the self ended and the void began. When a person spoke of being visited by such an entity, they were describing the terrifying experience of having their internal compass shattered. It was the recognition that our libido, our life force, could be hijacked by something that looked like what we wanted, but was actually the opposite of life. But we live in the era of the great arrogance. We have convinced ourselves that by deconstructing our myths, we have somehow conquered the forces they represented. We look back at the Dark Ages with a smirk, believing that because we understand the biology of arousal and the chemistry of dopamine, we are no longer subject to the demons of the past. We decided that the succubus was just a repressed fantasy, a ghost of a religious guilt that we have finally outgrown, and that is exactly where the trap was set. By killing the myth, we removed our only defense mechanism. We didn't destroy the predator, we simply made it invisible. We invited it out of our nightmares and into our daylight, giving it a seat at every table and a permanent residence in our pockets. The modern world is obsessed with the idea of correctness. We spend our days navigating a minefield of linguistic traps, terrified of using the wrong word or offending a ghost. Our governments and institutions have become self-appointed masters of ceremonies, policing the surface of our lives to ensure a sterile, sanitized public image. They tell us that this is progress. They tell us that we are becoming more inclusive and safe. But while we are busy correcting our vocabulary, our private reality is being hollowed out. Behind the curtain of political correctness, we have built a society that is more hypersexualized, more desperate, and more dehumanized than any that came before. We have removed the moral weight of the other. In the old world, even the most carnal desire was balanced by a sense of the sacred or the forbidden. There was a friction that kept us human. Today, that friction is gone. We have turned the human being into a stream of data. We have commodified the very essence of connection. The succubus no longer needs to wait for you to fall into a deep sleep in a lonely room. It is there when you wake up, it is there while you eat, and it is there in the glowing blue light of your phone before you close your eyes. It is the algorithm that knows your deepest, darkest preferences and feeds them back to you in a loop of infinite consumption. It doesn't want your soul in the way a priest would describe it. It wants your sovereign attention. It wants to replace your capacity for real, heavy, difficult human love with a digital subscription that never ends and never satisfies. This is the engineering of the new de-humanization. We are being told we are free to explore every whim, while we are actually being enslaved by a system that profits from our loneliness. The more isolated you are, the better consumer you become. The more you treat people as pixels on a screen, as products to be swiped, used, and discarded, the more you lose your own status as a person. You become a ghost in your own life, haunted by a digital entity that you invited in because you thought it was just entertainment. We are losing the mythos, the shared stories that told us what was worth fighting for and what was worth protecting. Without that compass, we are just walking meat, waiting for the next notification to tell us what to desire. In this video, we are going to look into the abyss. We are going to peel back the layer of correctness and look at the raw digital machinery that is draining our culture. We are going to talk about why the return of the demon is the only way to understand why our modern relationships feel so empty. We are going to ask the question that no one in the mainstream wants to touch. In our rush to become rational and modern, have we accidentally opened the door to a force that is eating us alive from the inside out? Before we go deeper into how this digital predator is rewiring our brains, I need to remind you that the only way to keep this channel independent and the signal clear is through your support. You can find all our research, our manuals, and the full ecosystem of the bunker on our website. One link, everything at your fingertips. No middlemen, no censorship. Visit it now and become part of the resistance against the hollow world. Now, let us look at the paradox of our time. We are living in a period of unprecedented safety in terms of social engineering. Governments and corporations have spent the last decade obsessed with the sanitization of our public discourse. They have created a world where the surface of our reality is polished to a mirror finish. We are told that by policing our language and by adopting a posture of extreme sensitivity, we are evolving into a more compassionate species. But if you look beneath that polished surface, what you find is not compassion, but a vast cold machine of commodification. We have created a society that is polite in the streets, but absolutely predatory in the sheets of the digital world. The modern succubus doesn't need to hide in the shadows of the church or the dark corners of folklore because it has been granted a legitimate business license. It has been rebranded as personal branding and content creation. We are witnessing the total collapse of the boundary between the person and the product. When you look at the proliferation of platforms like OnlyFans, what you are seeing is not the liberation of the individual, but the final triumph of the market over the human soul. We have convinced a generation that their most intimate self is a digital asset to be traded for monthly subscriptions. We have taken the mystery of human connection, the very thing that the ancient myths sought to protect, and we have put a price tag on it. This is where the de-humanization becomes technical, when you interact with a person through a screen, and that interaction is mediated by a transaction. The other ceases to be a human being with a story, a soul, and a future. They become a pixelated commodity, they become a service. In the ancient stories, the succubus would steal your breath while you slept. Today, the digital succubus steals your ability to see another human as anything more than a tool for your immediate gratification. This is why our relationships feel so empty and so fragile. We are trying to build connections with products, not with people. We are trying to find warmth in the cold glow of an interface. The genius of this modern engineering is that it uses the language of empowerment to mask the reality of exploitation. We are told that being a digital creator in the sexual space is the ultimate form of freedom. But true freedom requires sovereignty over oneself. When your very image, your most private moments are owned by a server and distributed by an algorithm that prioritizes engagement over human dignity, you are not free. You are a cog in a machine that feeds on the loneliness of others. And on the other side of the screen, the consumer is not a fan or a follower. They are a victim of a psychological loop designed to keep them in a state of permanent dissatisfaction. Think about the sheer scale of this. We are consuming human beings at a rate that would have horrified our ancestors. We are scrolling through lives as if we were looking at a menu. This constant exposure to hypersexualized, fragmented bodies has a profound effect on our psychology. It blunts our empathy. It makes the real world seem dull and demanding. Why put in the hard work of building a real relationship with a real person with all their flaws, their needs, and their complexity when you can have the sterilized, perfect digital version for $20 a month? The digital interface is the perfect veil. It allows the predator to feed without the prey ever realizing they are being drained. We are becoming a society of ghosts, wandering through a digital landscape looking for a phantom of connection that the machine is simply not designed to provide. The more we consume, the more we hunger, the more we connect, the more isolated we feel. This is not a glitch in the system. It is the system's core function. The digital succubus thrives in the space between your desire and your fulfillment. It is the infinite scroll of a void that can never be filled because it was designed to be a bottomless pit. We have traded our mythos for a terms of service agreement, and we are only just beginning to realize the cost of that trade. To understand the current state of our dehumanization, we have to look at how the will, that central pillar of human agency, is being systematically dismantled. In every ancient tradition, the battle for the soul was essentially a battle for the attention and the intent. The myths of the succubus were warnings about the erosion of that intent. They taught us that if you lose control over your desires, you lose control over your destiny. But in the modern world, we have handed the keys to our desire over to a series of black box algorithms that are far more efficient than any demon of folklore. We are no longer making choices. We are being guided by an engineering of the subconscious that is designed to keep us in a state of perpetual, low-level arousal. This is the technical reality of the digital succubus. It isn't just about the presence of sexual content, it is about the frequency and the accessibility. By making the hypersexualized image available at every second of every day, we have destroyed the psychological refractory period of human curiosity. We are constantly being bombarded with supernormal stimuli, images and videos that are more vivid, more perfect, and more extreme than anything found in the real world. Our brains, which evolved over millions of years to respond to the rare and the precious, are now drowning in a digital sea of the cheap and the infinite. The result is a total desensitization. We are becoming emotionally numb because we are overstimulated. Look at how this affects our capacity for human interaction. When you are trained by an algorithm to expect a constant stream of novelty and perfection, the real world begins to feel like a disappointment. A real person with a real body and a real personality cannot compete with the curated, filtered, and engineered fantasies that live in your smartphone. This is the succubus effect in the 21st century. It doesn't just drain your energy, it ruins your taste for reality. It makes the ordinary beauty of a human connection seem boring or too much work. We are being conditioned to prefer the simulation because the simulation doesn't ask anything of us. It doesn't require sacrifice, it doesn't require patience, and it certainly doesn't require us to be good people. It only requires us to be consumers. While this is happening, the masters of ceremonies in our governments and big tech corporations are busy distracting us with the theater of moral correctness. They want us to argue over labels and pronouns because it keeps us from looking at the massive industrial-scale erosion of our basic human dignity. They talk about digital safety while profiting from the data generated by the very platforms that are destroying our mental health and our social fabric. It is a masterful sleight of hand. They manage the correctness of the surface to hide the filth of the foundation. They have created a world where you can be fired for saying the wrong word, but you are encouraged to spend your paycheck on a digital subscription to a person who is being exploited by the same system that claims to protect you. This de-humanization is not a side effect. It is the goal. A person with a strong will, a clear moral compass, and deep, meaningful relationships is very difficult to manipulate. A person who is lonely, addicted to dopamine hits, and disconnected from the mythos of their ancestors is the perfect subject. We are being turned into walking meat units of consumption that exist only to feed the machine. We have lost the ability to feel the sacred because we have replaced it with the viral. We no longer look for a partner to build a life with. We look for a profile that matches our data-driven preferences. We are losing the capacity for spirit, and in its place we are installing a software update that tells us that our emptiness can be cured by the next swipe. The loss of the mythos means the loss of the boundary. Without a sense of the forbidden, nothing is special. Without a sense of the sacred, nothing is respected. We are living in a flat world where everything is a product and everyone is a potential customer. The succubus of old represented a threshold, a warning that some paths lead to the death of the self. But today we are told there are no thresholds. We are told that every desire is valid, every whim is a right, and every boundary is an oppression. By removing the walls, we haven't found freedom. We've simply allowed the desert to move in. We are being consumed by a void that we called liberation. And we are doing it with a smile and a smartphone in our hands. The engineering of our desire is the ultimate tool of our domesticaton, and the digital succubus is the face of our new master. To understand why we are failing so miserably at managing our own lives in the digital age, we have to look back at what we threw away. The mythos was never about literal truth. It was a psychological technology. It was a set of maps designed to navigate the most dangerous parts of the human condition. When our ancestors spoke of the succubus and the incubus, they weren't just telling ghost stories to pass the time. They were identifying a fundamental human vulnerability. The fact that our biological drives can be turned against our spiritual and mental integrity. They understood that the shadow, that part of ourselves that hungers without end, needs to be contained within a framework of meaning. The succubus was a compass. It told you, if you cross this line, you are no longer the master of your house. It provided a moral and social friction that forced the individual to evaluate their actions against something larger than their own immediate urge. This friction is exactly what created character. It is what allowed for the development of real intimacy. Because intimacy requires the ability to say no to the 1,000 distractions in order to say a profound yes to one person. By removing the myth, we haven't become more evolved. We have simply removed the brakes from a vehicle that is now hurtling toward a cliff. We have replaced the compass of the ancients with a GPS that is programmed by the very entities that want us to get lost. The modern master of ceremonies, the state, the corporation, the algorithm, hates the mythos, because the mythos is a source of independent authority. If you have a moral framework that tells you that your body and your soul are not for sale, you are a bad consumer. If you believe that there is something sacred about human connection that cannot be digitized or commodified, you are a threat to the bottom line. This is why the engineering of correctness is so aggressive. It seeks to replace the organic, heavy, and often difficult wisdom of the past with a shallow, flexible, and easily manipulated set of rules that can be changed by a software update or a new government decree. They want us to be correct so that we don't have to be moral. The result is a total disorientation. We are like sailors who have thrown their sextants overboard because someone told them that the stars were just old superstitions. Now, we are adrift in a sea of hypersexualized noise, unable to find our way back to a sense of purpose. The digital succubus thrives in this disorientation. It offers itself as a substitute for the meaning we have lost. It tells us that our loneliness isn't a sign that something is wrong with our society, but a sign that we simply haven't consumed enough yet. It suggests that the next subscription, the next video, the next interaction will be the one that finally makes us feel whole. but a phantom can never give you substance. A digital ghost can only give you the illusion of warmth while it drains the actual heat from your life. We need the demon back. Not because we need to live in fear, but because we need to recognize the scale of what we are fighting. When you call something a demon, you acknowledge its power and its intent. When you call it engagement metrics or user retention, you sanitize the threat and make yourself a willing participant in your own destruction. The ancient myths understood that desire is a fire. It can heat your home, or it can burn it down. The modern world has removed the fireplace, and is now wondering why the floor is on fire. We have lost the ability to manage our libido because we have been told that libido is the only thing that matters. We have elevated the urge to the status of a god, and we are now discovering that it is a very cruel and demanding deity. The de-humanization we see today, the influencers who sell their intimacy, the millions who buy it, the hollowed-out husks of our interpersonal relationships, is the direct consequence of this loss. We have become a culture of voyeurs rather than livers. We watch others pretend to be intimate while we sit alone in the dark, our faces illuminated by the same cold light that is killing our capacity for real connection. The succubus hasn't changed its nature. It has simply changed its strategy. It has adapted to a world that no longer believes in it. It hides in plain sight in the very language of liberation and choice that we use to congratulate ourselves on our modernity. It is time to realize that the choices being offered to us are not choices at all. They are the lures of a predator that has finally found a way to win without firing a single shot. We have to reclaim the mythos not as a return to the past but as a defense of the future. We have to learn to see the boundaries again before the void consumes what little is left of our humanity. We have traveled from the ancient nightmares of the succubus to the modern reality of the digital algorithm, and the conclusion is as cold as the light from your smartphone. We are being hunted by our own creations. But the goal of this analysis isn't to leave you in a state of despair. Despair is just another form of paralysis, and the machine feeds on paralysis just as much as it feeds on desire. The goal is to wake up the sovereign self. If you are watching this, it means there is still a part of you that recognizes the hollow ring of the modern world. It means your spirit, that core essence we are constantly trying to protect here, is still fighting against the de-humanization that has become our new cultural baseline. The first step to reclaiming your humanity is to stop being correct and start being real. We have to stop accepting the sterile, sanitized version of reality that is being pushed on us by the self-appointed masters of ceremonies. We have to acknowledge that our desire is not a commodity, and our attention is not a resource to be harvested by a faceless corporation. The digital succubus only has power as long as you remain a passive consumer. As soon as you step back, as soon as you re-establish a boundary, the spell begins to break. You have to realize that every time you choose a real, difficult human connection over a digital simulation, you are performing an act of revolution. Every time you refuse to view another person as a product, you are reclaiming a piece of the mythos. We are living in a time where the most radical thing you can do is to have a private life that is not for sale. In a world of subscription-based intimacy, constant social media updates, and the hypersexualization of every waking moment, silence and modesty have become weapons of war. To protect your intimacy is to protect your power. The ancient myths understood this perfectly. They knew that the sacred is sacred because it is set apart. It is not for everyone. It is not for the market. By bringing the demon back into our vocabulary, we are simply giving ourselves the permission to say no to the drain on our energy, no to the commodification of our libido, no to the dehumanization of our brothers and sisters for the sake of a dopamine hit and a corporate profit margin. The governments and the institutions will continue to polish the surface. They will continue to tell you that you are safer and freer than ever while they monitor your data and manage your descent into isolation. They want you to be a polite, well-behaved ghost in a digital machine. They want you to argue over words while they steal the meaning behind them. But you are more than that. You are the descendant of people who faced the monsters of the night and built civilizations out of the chaos. You are the heir to a mythos that was designed to make you strong, not to make you correct. It is time to stop looking for a compass in the hands of those who want you to be lost. You have to find that compass within yourself, in the recognition of your own dignity and the dignity of those around you. As we close this signal, I want you to take a hard look at your own digital hygiene. I want you to ask yourself, who is feeding on my attention today? Is my desire a reflection of my soul, or is it a line of code written by someone who doesn't even know my name? The path back to the mythos is not an easy one. It requires friction. It requires the courage to be boring in the eyes of the digital world. It requires the strength to seek out the mystery and the weight of real life. with all its messiness and its pain, rather than the sterilized perfection of the screen. We must stop being spectators of our own destruction and start being the architects of our own reality. The succubus is real, but it is not invincible. It is a phantom that vanishes when it is met with a will that refuses to be bought. It is a shadow that disappears when you turn the lights on and decide that you are no longer for sale. I want to hear from you in the comments, and I don't mean a superficial reaction. I want to know if you feel the weight of this dehumanization. Have you noticed the change in how we perceive each other? Have you felt the drain on your own spirit? This channel exists because we refuse to let the signal go silent. We are here to keep the fire burning for those who still remember what it means to be human in a world that wants us to be machines. Thank you for being here, for your support, and for having the courage to look into the abyss with us. Remember, the most important thing you own is the one thing they can't digitalize: your soul. Keep it safe, keep it sovereign. It is time to unplug and look at the stars again. I am Krista, the chronicler. Until next time, keep blasphemous, folks.